What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet, and I am black up in your face again with some more pro black commentary. So, there's been a lot of talk over the last few weeks or so based on Donald Trump, the lace front wearing tangerine, taking over in office as to you know, whether his presidency is going to affect black people and how it's going to affect black people, especially within a negative context. So there are people speculating that Trump might, you know, do away with Black History Month or whatever, or if there are any programs or celebrations surrounding Black History Month, Trump might do away with that. I've seen a lot of people talking about that online. And the truth of the matter is, the way I feel about it is that if Donald Trump wants to disband or try to take away Black History Month or try to do away with some Black History Month programs that are funded by the government, this is not something that we should be upset about or scared of. Okay? As black people here in America, it should not be up to the government to decide whether we can celebrate something as special and as important as Black history. When it comes to Black history, Black people this should be something that we celebrate and teach our children all year long. It's not even something that should even be relegated to a month. This is something that we should always be aware of and something that we're constantly teaching to our children. Now, when I talk about this, let me preface this by saying that this is not a coon rant by like one of these black celebrities or these black conservatives out here who are afraid of Black history. That's why they always rail against Black History Month, because you have a lot of people out there like these celebrities like Morgan Freeman, or Morgan Slave Man as I call him, or people like Jason Whitlock who want to get rid of Black History Month because they feel it's divisive and it might make their white audience uncomfortable, right? As if we're supposed to give a damn if our history, whether it be our great achievements or things that we have suffered from white supremacy, as like we're supposed to care that it makes a bunch of mayonnaise mutants uncomfortable, right? If they're uncomfortable with our history, then that's just their problem. We can't, we shouldn't have to deal with that, because the thing is, when it comes to uncomfortable situations in our own history or with our own community, we can't just shut our ears to that, right? We have an entire educational system, we have a media apparatus, and we have a government that is constantly telling black people that negative things about ourselves, whether it's true or not, right? It doesn't have to actually be true for us to be hearing it. We have to hear negative things about ourselves all the time, constantly in a rotation, to the point where black people actually have a lot of self-hate, and they feel that they have a lot of hate within themselves and don't feel that their people have contributed anything to this country or this continent. So if we have to constantly hear that, then I don't see why we should care whether Biff and Becky get their panties in a knot about Black history. Okay, I don't care if learning about ourselves or glorifying ourselves or acknowledging the contributions that we make and teaching these things to our children is something that makes white people uncomfortable. So be it. Okay, and to a lot of these bootlicks and buck dancers who want to rail against Black History Month because of that, I'm not one of them. Okay, so do not confuse what I'm saying with these putrid bootlicking buffoons. All right, what I'm saying is, just like I said earlier in another video where I talked about supporting black businesses, this is not something that you should do because the dominant society has decided to take your crumbs away. You see what I'm saying? Like you support black business 24/7. And that's the message I tried to tell you in that particular video share. I feel the same way about black history. This is something that it's not just something that we're acknowledging, it's not just something that we're teaching, it's something that we do, right? We make black history as we move along. So in order for us to allow this society, whether it be from Democrats or Republicans or whoever, to try to control that or try to take it away or whatever, that's not something that we should even allow. It's not something we should even mentally be thinking about. You know what I mean? It's not something that should be bothering us. The same way you don't need Donald Trump to say if you can have a party in your backyard or have a barbecue or have a family reunion is the same way you don't need Donald Trump to say yay or nay on your Black History celebrations. Okay, there are plenty of black events that I go to that the government has nothing to do with. It's put together by the black community itself. All right. And the same thing goes for either black businesses or black business expos. These are things that we can do ourselves. We don't have to depend on anybody else to give us funding or anybody else to acknowledge that we're doing it. Who cares what they think? All right. It's about what we want. All right. So this is not something that I'm getting bent out of shape over. Now, I'm sorry if you were one of these people who I guess was getting funding for whatever your Black History event was or program or what have you, but that means you just have to find another way to do it. Okay? This is not something that you should be depending on the government for anyway. And the truth be told, if you were depending on the government to teach you Black history or depending on the government to give you funding for these things, you have to be aware that that funding comes with conditions. You see, you're not going to be able to teach the truth about Black history in this country. You're only going to be able to teach certain things, and it's going to be leaning towards multiculturalism. It's going to be leaning towards telling you that you have to be intersectional. I already know what it is because I've seen these types of things already over the last 20 years or so, where the government tries to put a lockdown on Black history. You're not allowed to learn about our revolutionary heroes. How many of you ever even learned about Nat Turner in school? How many of you get to learn about our true revolutionary scholars like Amos Wilson or Dr. John Henrik Clarke, right? Or Dr. Ben or Dr. Francis Cress Welsing? That's very rare that you even get to learn about that stuff in school. And if they do teach you about them, they try to demonize those people. You know, over the last few years since she's passed away, you have a lot of these black liberals who have been demonizing Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, calling her homophobic and all this other derogatory statements, trying to minimize her work and trying to minimize what she was trying to teach her people. So that's what I'm saying. Like when you get Black history from some of these programs, from government funded programs or some of these government funded bootlicks, it's always going to be warped anyway. I always tell you, you have to be wary of those people that fix your food. If they fix your food, they're allowed to put all types of poison in there. That's why you see a lot of so-called Black history in the mainstream taking a lean towards multiculturalism or to the LGBT movement. You see? So don't be too concerned about the government shutting down, if it does, right? If it does shut down any type of Black history programs or whatever, don't be too worried about that, because that all that means is you personally, the person listening to my voice, you teach Black history. Don't allow these devils to teach it to your children anyway. You should be teaching your family and your people and your community what true Black history is. And it's not always just teaching it from some overarching aspect. just start with just teaching about your own family and where your family has been and what your family has been through. You know, try to find the best information you can about your own ancestors in this country, because I guarantee just listening to those stories will inspire you. Just listening, like when my grandmother or my father would tell me stories about my ancestors that came before me or our family, where they came from, like that was inspiring in and of itself. And all those stories were extremely interesting. So stuff like that is where you can start. All right. So, I mean, you folks can let me know how you all feel about this in the comments section. I would love to hear your responses in the comments section. So, anyway, this is Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.